In 2023, we got the first season of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, created by Rick Riordan as well as Jonathan E. Steinberg, starring Walker Scobell, Lea Sava Jeffries, as well as Aryan Simhadri. This show is about Percy Jackson, a young demigod who journeys across America to prevent war from the Olympian gods. So we're going to talk about this series and help you decide whether or not it's the right one to watch as a Christian. Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. Percy Jackson is rated TV PG for some fantasy violence, action, and some brief moments of peril. So we're going to dive into any convictions you may have that may prevent you from watching Percy Jackson, any theological themes present within this season, and wrap it up with my own personal thoughts on the show. Without further ado, let's dive into the Christian Conviction Meter. If this is your first time here, the Christian Conviction Meter is a series of 5 convictions that may distract or hinder your relationship with Jesus. Ultimately, this is a resource to help you figure out whether or not Percy Jackson and the Olympians aligns with the convictions God has given you. Of course, in a season dealing with some Greek mythology, there is going to be the use of some weapons of that time period. Swords, spears, shields, bows, and arrows are all a part of the show, and there is some fighting amidst all of that of battles between our characters as well as other demigods, and even against some monsters, which can get pretty intense, and some of that causes some explosions or fire along with that. There is a scene in which a monster's head is sliced off, but there is no kind of gory details within that. But there are some cuts, scrapes, bruises, some minor blood that is also part of the show. But for the most part, what you do see here is, of course, the action of just fighting against some of the gods or monsters or other demigods. That's a part of the show, as I have mentioned. We're going to give this a 3 out of 5. Our next category is lust, and while there isn't anything explicitly here, one thing we do know is that they do visit a museum. Percy Jackson and his mother, Sally Jackson, they visit a museum in which there's a statue of Perseus, and as most ancient Greek statues are, they're not wearing any clothes. It is further back off the camera, so it's not like in your face, but that is something to keep in mind. To be on the safe side here, we'll give it a 1 out of 5. Our next category is substances, and alcohol is referenced throughout the entire season of the show in some bits and pieces, namely when you deal with Dionysus. We also do see Hermes have a brief drink with him. Other than those things, there really isn't much to worry about here. No other abuse of any kind, or really just there is no abuse of substances contained within the show. We're going to give this category a 1 out of 5 as well. Our next category is profanity, and there is no language contained within this season of the show. 0 out of 5 here. Our last category is intense/horror scenes. This is not a horror show, which means there are no horror images contained within this season, but there definitely are some intense moments here within the show. Like I mentioned, it deals with a lot of Greek mythology, so some of the monsters and things that are a part of the Greek mythos do come to life, and they can be pretty intense and pretty terrifying, causing some intense action moments, and they also can look pretty creepy. There is also a very big kind of intense battle sequence that takes place at the St. Louis Arch, and so it is a pretty intense sequence. There also is some falling and just a few other things here as well. We are going to give this a 3 out of 5 as well. So our grand total on the conviction meter is going to be an 8 out of 25. Of course, it is pretty moderate in its intense scenes as well as its violence and gore here. But the biggest thing to note is that if any of the areas we talked about compromises your convictions or distracts you from your relationship with Jesus, no show is more important than your relationship with Christ, so make sure to keep focus on Him. That being said, there is the whole conversation about the Greek mythology. It is the entire big chunk of this show. So if you are not comfortable in watching a show that talks about Greek mythology or Roman mythology, any of that sort of stuff, or anything in that vein, this is not the show for you. That leads us beautifully into our next topic as we dive into some theological themes that are present within Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Now, one kind of funny thing to note about this show is while it doesn't explicitly reference Christianity, it does have a brief mention of God and Jesus.
He was a god.
Like Jesus?
Not God, a god.
And it does kind of reference Jesus as God, which is kind of cool. But anyways, like I mentioned earlier, this show is very much about Greek mythology. So Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, all of those characters, Hermes, etc., Ares, whoever else you want to throw into here, they're all referenced, they're all talked about, they're all seen in this show. So that being said, again, this does deal with Greek mythology and the Greek mythos. So it is not anywhere talking about Jesus, the Bible, Christianity. It's not going to explicitly talk about because it is dealing with a much different belief with Greek mythology. That being said, let's dive into what I think of Percy Jackson Season 1. And for me, this show is a long time coming. I've been a big fan of the books, especially when I read them in middle school. I was the right age to read those books, both the original run with the Percy Jackson books, as well as the Heroes of Olympus books. I thoroughly enjoyed them, and they were just a really great read, especially for someone who's not the biggest, most avid reader. I enjoyed those books. But the challenge is that the movies didn't align very well with the books. They weren't really close at all. They were decent films, but terrible Percy Jackson films. This definitely changes the pace here, in which the fact that Rick Riordan is in every single part of the show. He is there to help guide and make sure it stays on course and is book accurate, which is great. The other thing is too, this is a lot more accurate, and that is really great to see. And while the story is fairly basic, there isn't too much character development here, which there is a bit of downside within that, in which there doesn't seem to be as much development as I would like to see, a bit more evidence of a change of heart rather than just a quick moment of, going from this to, all right, now we just got to save the world now. I wish there was a little more time in developing that, but regardless, it's still more accurate compared to the movie that released back in the 2010s, I think. I will say this, one thing that this also does well is its cast. Its cast is really good. It feels for the most part that they are very accurate in terms of personalities. I think Walker Scobell just does a really great job portraying Percy Jackson. He was the guy that a lot of people were fan casting, and he just does a really great job as this character. Cannot wait to see more of him in the future with this character. But I will say this, the set designs here overall is really solid, and in particular, Camp Half-Blood looks absolutely fantastic, nearly close to what I was envisioning when, I was reading these books for the very first time. What I was kind of picturing in my mind was very similar to what we do see in the show, which is really cool. There are a few things that are definitely different, but it is cool that they are just very similar to kind of how I pictured it. But like I did mention and talk about here very briefly, the biggest struggle I have with this show is just the lack of character development. We see it a little bit with Percy Jackson. It slowly, he has some bits and moments here, but Annabeth really doesn't have that at all. It just felt like a quick change of, we're very cautious of Percy, not a big fan of him, to, being all nice and huggy towards him. So, I don't know. I wish that was done just a little bit better. But overall, it's still a really solid show. I thoroughly enjoy it. I think the cast surrounding our three leads is really solid as well. Having, actors like Lin-Manuel Miranda pop in was kind of nice. Seeing actors who are also wrestlers like Adam Copeland, aka Edge, was cool. I get a kick out of that as a wrestling fan. But overall, it's a really solid show and a much better improvement to the story and a much better improvement compared to the film. And that is Just great to see. It's about time we got some really solid Percy Jackson content. Overall, I'm going to give the series an 8.3 out of 10. In case you're curious how we rate our shows here, I go by each episode, rate all of them, add them together, then divide it by the number of episodes, so it's an 8.3 out of 10. So it is an 8 out of 25 on the conviction meter, an 8.3 out of 10 in my review. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments below. Let's chat all things about Percy Jackson Season 1 in the comments. While you're down there, consider hitting that like and subscribe, joining our community here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching this video, but before you go, there are a few videos over here that YouTube is suggesting to you. I have no idea what they've picked. Maybe it's a good one, and we'll see you all in the next one.